Alright, so in class 12, we are talking about these things. Huzzahs. Alright, so online presence. Basically, online presence, what we mean by that is just, being online, right? How aware people are of your site, that sort of thing, right? So, the popularity of it, let's say. Okay, so the main way that you achieve this is through SEO. And there are whole books on SEO by itself. If you went to a Barnes and Noble or a Borders or any other bookstore that doesn't exist anymore, you went to the section that has like technology or the graphics or whatever, you'll see some books that are on Dreamweaver and some books that are on various things, and you will find just as many books, maybe even more, on SEO. Okay. To some people, SEO is actually even more important than the other aspects, because the thing is, you can make the most beautiful site in the world, but if no one is at your site, what's the point, right? Like, does a tree make a noise when it falls? Who cares? You know what I mean? It could fall in the most beautiful way, but if nobody hears it, it doesn't matter. I don't care about that tree, right? Unless that tree's falling on me, then I care. So it's the same thing. So if no one's seeing your site, no one's going to your site, who cares what the site looks like? So SEO is very important. So SEO stands for just search engine optimization. So 99% of the time when people go to sites, they are using a search engine. Typically, what you think about that would be Google, maybe Yahoo if they're from 1990, Bing. I like Bing, and a lot of people don't like Bing, but they would use some sort of search engine. There's a bunch of them out there, but they'll search for it on there, right? And so when you're thinking about search engine optimization, the idea is that you're just trying to make your site more prominent, okay? Now, when you are doing this, there's certain things you have to think about, there's certain things that the search engine will think about, right? So you have to think about how the search engines work. So they might be the way that they're finding and categorizing and their algorithms of how they function. You have to think about what people are searching for. So what that typically means is the search words, right? What keywords are they using when they're looking for certain things, especially when it's something that's related to the product or the service or whatever information you're trying to portray, okay? So like I said before, this can be considered the most important aspect of a site. A big thing that people will often do if you have a site done is they'll offer like different packages. Like they'll make this site that has these things, they'll make another site that has certain things, and one of the things you could do to like add to, that you will pay more for, is they'll add search engine optimization. They'll do things that'll make your site more prominent, okay? So it's really important to be the top of the search results. Now think about this. Let's say you're going online. I mean, I do this all the time. And let's say you're looking up and you want to buy a bicycle, right? Now, if you type in, bicycle, you will get a whole list of items, right? You'll have it'll be a list of different websites that you can go to. Typically, people are going to click on the first couple, right? They're going to click on the first or second one, maybe the third one. As it goes down, people are less likely to click on them, right? Just because it's the first ones they see, so that's typically what they go to. And that's important because obviously they're more likely to visit those. The other thing it does that you don't necessarily think about is it actually instills customer trust, right? Because the first page of results, I will trust. Second page, I will mostly trust. But once I get to like fourth page, maybe fifth page, then you're starting to get into like, I'm not going to buy anything that's showing up, on the fifth or fourth page or whatever, because, it doesn't sound legit to me, right? Unless it's like some weird niche thing and the other ones just didn't have it. You don't trust those. And so you're a lot less likely to put money, you know what I mean, or to take seriously a site that's further down in the list of things, okay? So there's a lot of reasons why that's important. Okay, so how search engines work. So there's basically two major functions. There's crawling and indexing. So crawling is the idea that basically they have computers that go through and they will go from site to site to site. So they crawl through the sites, basically. So just like if I'm in this site, right, I can click on this link and it will bring me to the next page. I click on another link and it'll go to the next page, so on and so forth. That's what they're doing. They're going through the sites and going one by one, and basically they're finding out where all the websites are so that they know that they're all there, and they just go through them. When they index them, what they're doing is, as they're going through, they are basically looking at the document, the whatever the page is, and then writing notes about it. Like, oh, this page has a lot of things on SEO. SEO's written on this like a whole bunch of times. And they're going to say, okay, that's something. So if somebody looks up SEO, this will show up, as opposed to like if I have other classes where it says 3D modeling, right? That's not going to show up in there because there's nothing written with SEO. That's not going to be a keyword. So basically, they crawl through it. They find all of the pages, and then what they do is they make notes about them. Just, like if you're in the library and you're trying to find subjects, right? They'll have the little indexing and, little Dewey Decimal number system and all that jazz. Same basic idea. So those are the two main things that it does. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to rank the answers, okay, of when people search for things, okay? So for one is relevance. Basically, if someone's looking for a car, it's not going to give you a site that's dogs, right? Those aren't the two. So they're going to obviously give you things that are pertinent to what you're looking for. The other thing, and this is where it's kind of a catch-22, is popularity. So basically, if your site's popular, you're more likely to show up, but you don't get popular unless you're getting traffic. So you got to get the traffic to get popular, but you get the traffic if you're popular. It's like trying to get a job. Like if you have a job, you can get a job, like another job, because you already have a job. But to get the first job, you don't have any experience, so you can't get that job, but you need experience to get the job. You know what I mean? Or I don't know if this ever happened to you too. Like you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I like you. And then that person dumps you, and then it's a desert. Right? Like basically, in order to, sites that are more popular are going to be also up higher, which makes sense because and that also goes with the whole like instilling trust. Like obviously if a lot of people are going there, then you're going to trust it a little bit more. If it's something where it's like a little shady, right? You go to the shady part of town, there's a lot of people out on the streets, you don't really trust it. You trust it more if there's a lot of people. You feel a little more safe. Same basic concept. And then the other thing is algorithms. So they have a secret sauce of things that they have some sort of way of figuring out and giving the results to the user. There is some issues with this. There's been a lot of, interestingly, there's been a lot of lawsuits and stuff. Google in particular gets a lot of lawsuits because they are more or less picking winners and losers. If I'm looking to buy shoes, for instance, if I type in shoes, their equation, their system is going to determine who pops up at the top, right? So basically they're saying this business is going to get more business than this business based on whatever this secret sauce is. And there's a lot of people that have sued saying that they have been, superficially lowered, which subsequently hurts their business. And other ones are saying, so it's one of those things. And every time they get sued, they have a lot of difficulty with it. For one, because it's a very complicated subject, the algorithms, and I don't understand any of it. It's a very complicated subject, but also it's mostly computer learning, so they don't even understand the code. The computers, they write their own code, and so now it's become this behemoth that, it's going to probably murder us all. So anyway, that's basically the idea there. So some other things that the search engine's going to do is it's going to rank the quality of the search. So one is engagement. Basically, the SEO is going to determine the user satisfaction by the long click. Now, what do you think that means exactly? Did you guess it? Basically, what it means is that if someone goes to a site, right, they have a list of things. They click on one of the things that pops up. If they go there and then they immediately come back, like back to the search, like they hit the back button, go back to the search window or to the search results, that's a short click. What that will do is it will tell the SEO, the search engine, that was a bad result, and subsequently that will actually move you lower in the list. Now, if they click on the thing and they end up there and they stay there, like they're there for a long time, then it knows, oh, I did the right thing. That was what they wanted. So, and that's actually really important, because basically what that means is that it's great to get a lot of traffic, but if you're getting traffic that's not actually for you, like if you're drawing people in that they're immediately leaving, you're actually going to hurt yourself. So you only want to bring people in that want to be there. This is probably not even relevant anymore. Another thing you can do also that will affect your quality is linking. So what that means is that if you are linked to other sites, especially sites that are prominent, their popularity will build up your popularity, right? So it's like being friends with the cool kid in high school, right? If you're friends with the cool kid in high school, subsequently a little bit of that cool rubs off on you. It's the same idea. But the more linkages you have, just in general, is going to build up your popularity. So that's actually why social media, just like I was saying, like, web designers will charge extra for SEO optimization, or search engine optimization, I guess it's in the name. They actually will also charge more for like social media. Social media management's becoming like a thing. They've even been talking about adding a degree at Cecil for this. But I personally just hate it, but it is a large part of the stuff. So if you do create a site and you're creating your own business, it's a really good idea to make a Facebook group and then link that, and have an Instagram and link that, and have a YouTube channel and link that. If you link all these things to this, it'll draw people into your site, but also any popularity that they gain will sort of, affect that popularity of your website as well. So linking is also a pretty good thing to do. And actually, it's interesting. People do this superficially. So for one, this happened to me a couple times. My website will get hacked, and then what they'll do is they'll actually put in links to like not appropriate things, because by doing that, it gains them more popularity. Another thing I don't see it as much anymore, because I think they've built technology to kind of squash these. But if you go to like old sites and like old comments, you will see a lot of links to like buy these shoes. It has nothing to do with the subject. Like the subject's about like someone with like some sort of like weird fungus, right? And then you look down, it's like, you want to buy some Nikes? You should go here. And they'll basically flood these things, because for one, it draws people in, but also it's just linking more things to it. Anyway, so how the user works, right? Because that's really what we're trying to engage. So the user, right, is going to need some information. It could be any number of things. What they're going to do is they're going to have to formulate a string. Now, most of you guys, and I do this now too, I used to not do this, most of us just literally write, like we were going to ask somebody, like, what is the distance to the moon? But back in the day, when I used to write stuff, I would say, like, Earth to moon distance. Like, I would write it like that. I would just put the keywords. But basically, they are going to have to formulate a string, a query that they're going to put in there to get the results. So they're going to come up with some sort of question. They're going to put it into search engine. They're going to see what the results are. If they like any of the results, they're probably like some of them. They'll navigate to them. They'll look at each one of those websites to see if they are satisfied. If they aren't, they're going to rethink their query. They're going to try a different set of words and then search through those as well. Now, the queries, typically they're going to want to do something, know something, or go somewhere. So do something, typically that means like a transaction, right? So they're going to want to buy something. They're going to want to watch videos, maybe play games. There's a lot of different things that you can do, right? They might want to know something. So that could be your information, right? So reviews, research, news, things like that, right? Or they might want to go somewhere. So when we say go somewhere, one of the big things now is like these virtual spaces, right? Especially because of social media. So they might want to like visit Facebook. If I go to Facebook, it has things that people write on my wall. There's things that I write on other people's walls. I have like a virtual space. If I go to like I like football, if I go to NFL.com, right? It has like, it knows who my favorite sports team is. And so it'll have a lot of that sports team in there. And it'll be things directed at me, and they'll have fantasy football in there. And there's all these different things, but it's just an area for me. Most of your email addresses are kind of a space, right? If you have a Google email address, right? You know, you go on there and it has your Google Drive and Google Meetups and, you know, there's the school stuff and your Google Docs and all that other stuff. And it's kind of a space that you have, right? So some tips with this. Cloaking. Don't try to deceive the search engine into finding your site. Just make sure that the user can see it. Don't try to do anything shifty. The algorithms are always learning. And even if they aren't, people are, and they will squash them. And typically, if you don't do the things that I'm saying, or you try to do something sneaky, it actually is going to hurt you. Like, they get upset, and they'll be like, you know what? No thanks. So don't do that. Hierarchy. Basically, make sure that every page is linked together in a logical manner, meaning that you have a nav bar that you can get to every page. Obvious. The title or alt. Use these elements to describe your content. So like when we use the images, and you know how like we're supposed to do things that are ADA compliant, Americans with Disability Act. So meaning like when we have a picture, we're supposed to put an alt in it and describe what the picture is. There's also an option to put title in there, which is kind of the same thing where you hover over it, it'll say what it is. If you use those, you can kind of describe them, and it just gives you more opportunity, especially since the computer doesn't necessarily understand the images, it only understands text. So if you put text in there, you don't lose anything from it just being a picture. Dynamic content. If you have dynamic content, and what I mean by that is like Flash stuff, which not as much, or Java, or things that are not readily available. Like all this is HTML, right? Even images or video, like that's dynamic. It will not read those because that's code that gets compiled. So it doesn't see really what you wrote in those. So if you have stuff that's important in there, like you can't like stuff keywords in there basically. If you keep your website updated regularly, it keeps it it improves its SEO. Make sure you're using keywords that you know your users will be searching for. So you can do a lot of things where you just go through and you look for well, actually right here. So you can actually test the iterations of, so you can try certain words, see where you show up in the search engine. If it doesn't show up a lot, then try different words, things like that. Another thing I would say also with the keywords, things that you know your user will be searching for, a real common thing that people will do is say, like, okay, let's say you're a person and you sell Labradoodles because you were like, oh, I want to make my own whatever. Here's these dogs, which it's just junk because they're mutts. I'm sorry. Everyone keeps having these mutts and they keep acting like it's a breed. Now you have two different breeds that got together, living in sin, and then they made, oh, we're gonna call it Labradoodle, or this is a Chipotle, right, or whatever. You guys just making things up. It's not real. These aren't breeds. Back in my day, they were just called mutts, which I like mutts. I every dog I have is a mutt. I don't like full bred, but it's still, just you're trying to upsell me. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, but let's say you're selling Labradoodles, right? If you try to make your keywords dogs, two things. One is dogs very broad, so there's gonna be a lot of people writing dogs, right? You're gonna be competing with just everybody with dogs. It's a real vague term. Also, let's say for whatever reason, you happen to be higher in the thing. If someone types in dogs, they don't know, let's say you're selling Labradoodles, right? They don't know that they want a Labradoodle. So even if they go to your site, they haven't really made a decision yet. But if instead you use Labradoodle, a more specific term, they know they want Labradoodle. Like they're coming to your site already knowing that that's what they're looking for. So they're actually more likely to buy your Labradoodle. Also, you won't be competing with dogs. You'll just be competing with people that write Labradoodles. So the more specific you can get with those keywords, you're actually better off than trying to do those broad ones. Those ones will not work as well. Forms. So if you have, remember before I was saying that the search engines crawl and index, they cannot penetrate forms, meaning like if it's something I have to type in order to get into something, that's not going to work. Okay, and I'm sure you're probably aware. You try to. They have the little caption things, and you have to like, which picture has a dog in it. And you got to click on the dog pictures, and then, or it has like weird words written. You got to type the words. You know what I mean? So they're trying to make bots not go into them. But generally, forms are not a good idea. CMS. So obviously, when we do WordPress, which is what we're doing right now, if you use a template or themes, or you have duplicate pages, it's going to throw the SEO off because they're not as unique. So if you were to look at the HTML that this is generated, it's very vague. It'll just be like section, blah, blah, blah. As opposed that if I wrote this by hand HTML, like this would be called like tips section, and this would be called how users work section, right? The names would be more specific. So you lose a little because of that, but spelling, don't be an idiot. Spell your stuff right. Seems kind of obvious. Prominence of words. So basically some words, like your title, you know, when you're in the heading or whatever, and the header, and you write, you know, title, that's going to have the most prominence. Text has a lot of prominence. Don't try to stuff words, meaning like randomly throw words into areas that have no relevance just to try and put more keywords in there. When you are choosing your keywords, obviously use keywords that are relevant. You want users that when they're at your site, that they are happy to be at your site. If you draw in users that don't want to be there, it's actually going to hurt you. Research, look at your competitors and see what they're using. You know, try to determine the value of the keywords. That's that iteration thing. Just try different ones, see what happens. I mentioned before about the specificity. Broad words have a lot of competition. Specific words, they're ready to buy. Resources, there's online resources. There's actually one right here. So the Google AdWords Keyword Planner. You can click on that and it will show your Google Trends. All these are things you can look at. There's other ones out there, I'm sure, too. This is probably dated at this point. Yeah, these are the places you can place keywords. Now, so once you make a website, you upload it. It's on a server. You got your own domain name, yada, yada, yada. It's all good. It's live. Your website is live. You don't have to submit it to the search engines for it to be something that people can look up. You can actually just leave it. They'll find it. They'll find it on their own. But if you do want to jump the gun, you can actually submit your URLs, your URL, to these sites. So Google's, Yahoo's, Bing's, whatever other ones you can think of. Open Directory is supposed to do all of them. But basically, you give them your URL, and it will immediately put that into their search engine. Honestly, I've never had an issue. As soon as I open up something, boom, it shows up. So, but you don't need to do this, but if you wanted to, it's there. There's this tool here where after you make your site, particularly if you're writing your own HTML, CSS, you can send them your link, and it will actually say, oh, there's an error here or there, or what have you. That's what these do. You don't really need them, especially if you're doing Dreamweaver, because it already kind of finds that stuff for you. All right, so site and upload. So, or site upload. It's the end of the day. So hosting a domain. So the domain name basically is the name of your website. So again, like you can see this is teachmecone.flywheelsites, blah, 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 right? So teachmecone.flywheelsites, that's the domain. I actually have a subdomain. Flywheel Sites is the domain name, and then this .teachmecone in front of it is, or the teachmecone dot, it's a subdomain. But basically, that's just the name that people are going to type in order to get to your site. Because your site technically is an IP address, right? It's like 1.111.346. Whatever. But no one's going to go to your website by typing in an IP address. It's just too hard. So it's the same thing as a phone book. You have to type in the name. You look for the name of a person, and then you find their phone number. But instead, the computer does it for you. But you have to type in the name of the website. So you have to basically get that. Now, you can do it. There's a bunch of places that will allow you to do that. That will do that for you. Now, if you get a host, like you basically have to get a host and a domain. Okay, the host is the computer that basically you're uploading your site onto. That's going to actually hold the files. The domain, you can buy those. It's like $10 a year. It varies, but it's around $10 a year. It'll probably be a little bit less or maybe a little bit more. Depends. Sometimes people already bought them. There's a lot of people that they bought a whole crap ton of domain names on the idea that these are probably going to become popular. And so they're just buying them so that, you know, if you really want it, you pay them extra money and what have you. But most of them aren't really a big problem. I mean, I didn't have any problems grabbing mine. That's what I wanted, and it was there. But anyway, so you need a domain name. The other thing is hosting, so you have to get a server, basically. Now, it is possible to host your own site on your own computer, but yet your computer has to be on 24/7, always connected to the internet. And quite frankly, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's just not worth it. So I do not suggest doing that. So basically, the server is just a computer that you're more or less renting, that's always connected to the internet, has a really good connection to the internet, and basically you pay rent for it. And it's weird because you don't pay monthly. They'll show you a monthly rate, but you pay for a year. Usually you pay yearly or annually or biannually. What's two? Either once or twice a year. So it's up to, and obviously you pay for 2 years, then you get it's cheaper. Now most of the time, especially if you're just starting out and you go to a host, they'll actually throw in the domain name for free. They'll just pay for that for you. So if I would suggest, don't even worry about the domain name initially. Just go to a host, and then you can go from there. There's a bunch of different hosts that you can go to. So there's like, what was I using? Bluehost was one. HostGator is another one. I'm using Flywheel sites, as you can see here. There's a bunch of them. I would just do a bunch of research. You can probably find what you want. But it's not the cheapest thing. It's like $100 a year. So it's not super cheap, but you might be able to find a cheaper one. Basically, the cheaper they are, the less space you get, the less speed it is, the fewer people are supposed to be there, things like that. The more expensive, more robust, basically. But you could probably get away with pretty cheap to start with. Okay, now, depending on the type of site that you're making, if you're making a regular site that you hand-coded like we did in the first two projects, what you would do is after you get these two things, you need to get an FTP. And an FTP basically is a file transfer protocol. Basically what it means is it allows you to take your files from your computer and drop them onto the files of their computer. And it's actually really easy. It's literally like if you're in was it File Explorer? Is that what this thing's called? File Explorer or Finder. It's just like you have two folders up and you just drop and drag your folders from one side to the other. And that's how it works. And basically it just uploads them onto there for you. That's literally what it is. You're logged into basically two computers. Your computer and this computer on the internet somewhere. Who knows where, okay? But that's what the FTP does. It just allows you to do it in a secure manner, okay? So file transfer protocol. So just like this is hypertext transfer protocol, that's the file transfer protocol. That's actually transferring the files. Now, one thing we can do, and you can choose which one you want to do. You could do either your first one, your first project, which was your self-portrait, your biography, or the second one, which was the Bootstrap one. But you can actually, for free, you can go to GeoCities. It's really crappy. You won't have a domain name. It'll be a subdomain name, much like mine is here, because I need to update mine. So it'll be like your site name .geocities.ws, or it might be .com, I don't remember. But basically you can do it for free and you can upload those sites on there. So I actually kind of go through how to do that here. So if you want to try it, you can go ahead and do it. It won't cost you anything. It's not great. You can't do anything dynamic. Like you can see, it's a static HTML, but it will work and you can get an idea of how it works, okay? But this isn't required or anything. This is just if you want to do it and, maybe make a portfolio site and pop it up there. It's not going to look super professional because, again, it won't have a domain name, but at least it's there, so. So you can see it's like geocities.ws/your name or whatever. Okay. So the last assignment basically is just to finish your site. So anything I might have said on the previous version when you've uploaded it, when you submitted it, just fix it. Basically, just go through and just make everything look nicer. It's just basically finalizing your final project website. That's it. So yeah, that should be pretty straightforward. There's no real video tutorial on it because you should, you're just kind of making it look better. All right. yeah, that's it. So good luck.